William James, father of modern psychology, about 125 years ago, stated something that's still significant, that the greatest discovery of his generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. We have control over our perceptions, our decisions, and our actions. We don't have control on anything else. So it is not what happens to us. It's our perception of what happens to us.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Shaqir Show. Today we're going to be discussing how do you unleash your potential and your greatness even during dark times. Okay, and today I have a very special guest because about 10 years ago, I remember one of my mentors, one of my friends, a guy called Kelvin Ray, who had introduced me to the work of Dr. DeMartini. And it was just absolutely incredibly life-changing. From a business perspective, from a mindset perspective, for how I went out and achieved certain things, in life. I have to, when I look back as, speaking on stage in front of, doing 100+ live events and building multiple $1 million businesses and all of this stuff is really because of how I tweaked my mind and I made a commitment to always be working on myself. And Dr. DeMartini, most of you have probably heard of him. He was a movie star in The Secret. He's read over 30,000, on my last count, 30,200+ books. And it's just incredible. You're an incredible human being, from a teacher, researcher, writer, speaker. So there's so much things that you've accomplished. I want to go back, Dr. DeMartini, too. When you were starting out, how did you even, because let's be honest, one of the things, because I'm a client of yours as well. And during the last 3-day event, the breakthrough experience, you were talking about, not putting people on a pedestal, right? And so you've read 30,000 books. I don't know many people or anyone that has actually done that. So how did you get to where you are right now? Who were you when you were 15 years old, 18 years old, that put you on this path?
Well, I was told in first grade by my first grade teacher in front of my parents that I'm afraid your son's got learning problems. He's looks like he's not going to be able to read or write properly, amount to anything, go very far in life, or speak properly, because I had speech impediment when I was a child. I had to go to speech pathologist starting at 1.5. So I had learning problems in the first part of my life. That led me to dropping out of school. That led me to living on the streets, starting at 13. That led me to, I was interested in sports, and I ended up taking up surfing. And in Texas, it wasn't the surf capital. So I hitchhiked from Houston, Texas to LA to go surfing in California and down into Mexico. So I was there starting at 14. At 15, I moved to Hawaii. I panhandled enough money in the beaches and made it a flight to Hawaii. Lived under a bridge first, then a park bench, then a bathroom, then an abandoned car. Kept social climbing until I lived in a tent and rode big waves on the North Shore until I nearly died at 17. And at that time, shortly after that, I had a real kind of a turning point. I met this amazing teacher named Paul Bragg. If I can move this over just a bit. Named Paul Bragg, that in one night, 1 hour, one message, he inspired me to believe that I could overcome my learning problems. I never thought I would be intelligent, and I never really read book until I was 18. I just couldn't spell properly, couldn't pronounce things properly, I put things backwards. I guess they called it dyslexia and a couple other things. But after meeting Paul Bragg, I, for the first time in my life, thought maybe I could overcome this. And I didn't like being dumb. I liked the idea that I could be perceived as somebody intelligent. And that night, my my life changed. I literally saw a vision of me standing in front of a group of people talking intelligently. And so I set out on a goal with the help of this man who I mentored under for about 3 weeks. I ended up going and getting my first book at a health food store called Chico's Organic Gardening and Natural Living. And I thought, well, if that guy can write the book, I bet I could read it. He looked like a hippie like me. And I went on my journey to try to figure out how to overcome my learning problems. That led me to fly back to LA and hitchhike back to Texas to see my parents. Been a number of years. And I took a GED and guessed and passed. I took a college entrance exam, I guessed, and miraculously I passed. I was saying to myself the statement that the gentleman gave me, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom, because I told him I couldn't read. And he said, just say that every day to yourself. And so for some reason, I thought that was creating some sort of a kind of a miraculous change in me or something. And then I took my first college class and I failed. I got a 27. You needed a 72 to pass. And I really had a low moment. And I really thought maybe I just don't have what it takes. And my mom saw me crying in the living room, really distraught. And she didn't know what to say. And finally, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, son, whether you become a great teacher and philosopher and travel the world like you'd say you want to do, whether you go back to ride big waves on the North Shore, or whether you go back and panhandle as a bum, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what. So when she said that, it was a moment of unconditional love that only a mother could probably provide. And my hand went into a fist. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading and studying and learning. I'm going to master this thing called teaching and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price it takes to bring my services to the world. I'm not going to let anybody stop me, not even myself. And it was a kind of a determination. There was no turning back. I got up and I hugged my mom and I went into my room and I got a dictionary out and I made a commitment to memorize that dictionary. And I started with 30 words a day. And my mom would test me on 30 words a day on the spelling, pronunciation, using it in a sentence with meaning. And that wasn't easy at first. But slowly but surely, my vocabulary grew and my thirst for knowledge started to grow. And I started reading everything I could every single day for literally 18-hour days, 20-hour days, and just kept accelerating and looking at what worked and what didn't work. When I was about to turn 19, I went to my mom and I said, Mom, no, she came to me, pardon me, and she said, son, what do you want for your birthday? Because my birthday was in just a few days, actually. It's November 25th. And she said, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, Mom, I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth, the greatest writings that have ever been created by the greatest minds who ever lived. And she said, well, you sure you don't want a t-shirt? That's what I was thinking about. I said, no, Mom, I want the greatest teachings. So she contacted her brother, my Uncle Ralph. And he was an MIT professor and a chemist and physicist, very bright guy. And as a gift, he sent on a flatbed truck 2 giant crates, 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates filled with thousands of books, a vast library. And I remember it dropping off in the front yard. And I got a crowbar out and I opened it up, this crates. And I just carried all these books in my room. I left this little mat there for doing yoga to have the sun salute in the morning. But my books, the room was just filled with books. And I started reading all day long, except when I would go to class and I'd read on the way to class and read back from class. I just started reading. I've never stopped. And, I started reading a lot. I mean, I was averaging around 40 to 70 books a week on average. And I did that, and I still read excessively. So I'm now over 30,500 books. And it just, plus all the magazines and articles and stuff. So I'm constantly reading and constantly summarizing and sharing. And you can't read and learn without having desire to share. I'm sure you know that. You have a yearning as you learn something that you know will make a difference. You got to share it. And so my teaching began when I was 18. And people started listening. I was so inspired to hear somebody would listen to me. It started around one person and another person, and finally about 16, 17 people in the library every day. And then by the time I went to the University of Houston, I'd have 100, 150 people, sometimes 400 people gathered every day out under the trees in the park area or in the cafeteria. And then I started teaching every single day. And I carried that on really to this day. And that took me first locally to the community, and then the city, and then the state, and then all over the United States. And now I've spoken in 154 countries. We've reached literally billions of people with radio, television, newspapers, magazines, 42 movies, lots of stuff. And I'm just as inspired today to learn. I just finished writing a textbook, which is a 1,000-page textbook on solar astrophysics, which is an odd thing that some people go, why would you do that? But it's related to the evolution of human beings, actually. So anything to do with maximizing human awareness and potential, anything to help people do something extraordinary with their lives, I'm in. That's my thing.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it puts the rest of the conversation in just a little bit of context. Doctor, I could literally listen to you for hours and hours. That's one of the reasons why I go through your programs, which we'll talk about right now, especially, as we're recording this, 2020, going on to 2021, obviously with this whole COVID crisis, the recession that's happening in the UK, in America, with all of this that's happening, right? Like what do you advise your clients? What do you advise people to how to think, right? Like what I'm getting at here is during times like this, right? Like it's not your fault, it's not my fault this is happening, but it's obviously affecting, right? Like I'm here in America right now in Chicago, but I just heard from my family in London that London is in lockdown, right? So like, I work from home, which, and I've been working from home for the last 10 years. So I can't really talk about myself, but the people that are, they're losing their jobs, they're losing their businesses. I have an online business, so I can, run it from anywhere. But people that have like businesses offline, or people that have had to just adapt, how should we be looking at this? What's your perspective and insights?
Well, William James, the father of modern psychology, about 125 years ago, stated something that's still significant. That the greatest discovery of his generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. We have control over our perceptions, our decisions, and our actions. We don't have control on anything else. So it is not what happens to us, it's our perception of what happens to us. And when COVID hit, I was in Tokyo filming for a movie and presenting my signature program, The Breakthrough Experience. And I flew back to Los Angeles because I was getting ready to do programs in Los Angeles. And all of a sudden we hit lockdown. And so we canceled 20 major cities, conferences, and went online. Now, we weren't fully prepared for online. We were sort of getting there, but we weren't really, and it catalyzed us to get our butt in gear and get online. So we adapted. And if you're not resilient, then you let the world on the outside affect you. Now, what happened is I sent out a message that there is never something positive or negative happening until you choose to narrow your mind to see only one side. It's always both sides. It's just an event, a neutral event, until you choose to bias it to one side or the other. So I said, let's make a list of all the blessings that we can identify right now, the opportunities and the gifts that this is offering. And about 17,000 upsides came in. And if we choose to see only one side and see the loss, that downside, the problems, then that's our choice. And of course, we become victim of our history, not master of our destiny that way. And we don't see how it's catalyzing plateau breaking. Because sometimes we think that the world's supposed to give us security, but that's not how it's designed. This is an opportunity time for people to care about other people and fill people's needs. There's never a lack of money to somebody who cares about another human being or a group or collective and cares enough to go out and find a service or a product or an idea that can fill their needs. And if you're wallowing in your own problem and not focusing on serving people, it's only going to perpetuate you bitching and not enriching. So to stop the story, stop running the story and getting to go make history, go do something that actually fills people's needs. Now, that's our responsibility. Fulfillment in life is not getting stuff. Fulfillment in life is having sustainable fair exchange, which means you do a service and you get compensated for it and you feel it's fair and everybody, both parties feels fair. And pursuing the mastery of that this is the opportunity for them. And I'm absolutely certain there's never lack of opportunities, no matter what the situation. Because with COVID, there's new niches, new opportunities. There was a little Chinese restaurant across from the hotel in Los Angeles when I first got to Los Angeles back in March that immediately got shut down, right? So what it did is it immediately got creative and took people that didn't have jobs and put them into a massive bicycle or car delivery service. And they boomed. This little company just absolutely boomed, and they were delivering food safely to people all over the region within about a 5-mile radius. And they just boomed. So they got creative and they found a solution instead of shutting down their restaurant. And what happened is they allowed people to come by and pick things up safely and deliver them safely. And they found the niche and they made more income and kept their overheads lower. And that's how they created it. A lot of people kept their business going, but they let people work from home. Some people had to lay people off, and they actually encouraged them to come up with creative things they could be doing. And many people came up with entrepreneurial adventures that they had thought about but didn't have the courage to do, and this catalyzed it. And many new jobs were born. And many people had the opportunity to be with their families more, not have to drive, less pollution, less time loss, less distress. There was, if you stop and look at the upsides and not just look at the downsides, there's great opportunities. I sat the other day in the hotel that I'm in, and there was a gentleman there that sold 150 million masks. He never was in the mask business, but he saw a need. $150 million mask, he got $1 per mask. So you tell me. He immediately found out that people need masks, so let's go in the mask business. And he created, and they're sold all over the world now. 150 million this man's made in 10 months. And minus his cost, obviously, which is about 40. So that's still 110 million friggin' dollars. Because he was never in that business, completely into the business. He said, well, I got no job. Let's find out what the needs are. And he said, let's go find out how these masks are made and let's go make a better mask. And he did. And now he's closing deals in 10 million masks at a time, 15 million masks at a time. And the lady that was with him, she says, I was an assistant. Now I'm working with him. I'm making more money. And I'm now thinking differently because I saw him think outside the box. And we're constantly thinking a creative thing. What else do people need right now? And we're coming up with ways and finding out the people who are doing that and specializing in that. And we're finding out how to partner with them and get affiliate arrangements and get cuts out of that and let the same people know what we're doing. If you need this, we have this too. And they're getting creative and they're caring and they're getting into action. So it is never what happens to you. It's your perception, decisions, and actions. And if you sit down and write down the blessings of what's happening, once your mind sees a balance, you're in your executive center where you get creative and you get innovative and you wake up your genius and you see a vision of what's possible and you strategize it, you mitigate the risk, and you get into executive action. And then you don't get distracted by the illusions of an emotion about an external world. Because when your power within is overriding the external world, you're a leader. Otherwise, you're a follower of the world. I'm not interested in following a cultural mythology of polarized subjective bias and misinformation and distract myself. I'm interested in leading the way and finding out what it is that serves. If you do that, there's an abundant possibility. So I'm thinking that COVID is Saint COVID because it's got a tremendous amount of opportunities that have come about this year. I have generated and made more money than I've ever made in my life. Only because I had an attitude of gratitude for the opportunity. And anything you're not grateful for becomes baggage. Anything you're grateful for becomes fuel. One of the greatest questions you ask yourself every day is, how's whatever's happening to me right now, factually, how's it helping me fulfill my mission? And don't compare your current reality to the past. Don't compare it to a fantasy of the future. Get grounded in what it is and ask, how specifically is what's happening now helping me fulfill my mission? If you ask, how can I do the greatest service in the most effective and efficient way with the resource I have today in a way that inspires me on a daily basis, you will do amazing things.
Now, Doctor, this seems like, one must develop certain habits or routines or a way of thinking, right? From your decades of experience and expertise now, what have you found the critical few routines and habits that some people have versus some people don't? Like when you meet someone and you're like, okay, he or she, they're making something happen, versus, you meet someone, you're like, that person needs a little bit more direction. What are the habits or routines or thinking styles that differentiates these two characters?
Well, every human being, regardless of gender, age, cultural background, has moment by moment a set of values that they live by. And that set of priorities or values that they live by, things that are most to least important, are unique and fingerprint specific to them. And anytime they live in alignment and congruent with what they value most, what is most meaningful, most inspiring, most fulfilling, they will spontaneously excel, build momentum, and achieve more in that area. That's their competitive advantage, as Ricardo said in economics. But anytime they're doing something lower on their values, they'll devalue themselves and they'll require extrinsic motivation, reward to do things, punishment if they don't do things, in order to get them to do things. Motivation is a symptom, never a solution for humanity. When you're intrinsically called to do something that's inspiring to you, you don't need motivation. I don't need motivation to do what I do. Not for 48 years next week. 48 years I've been doing it. So you don't need motivation. Now, filling your day with the highest priority actions that are most deeply meaningful, that also serve the greatest number of people. If you can take the time and care about yourself and care about others enough to discern that, and fill your day with those actions, and delegate all else so you can do what you're greatest at, and find that one thing that you can build momentum on and build a legacy around, nothing will stop you. The only thing that stops you is yourself. When you subordinate to the influence of the world around you, the herd, conform to mediocrity in their perceptions, and not give yourself permission to make a difference as a unique individual living authentically according to your own values. And having the courage to stand out, not fit in, and to create something original instead of just copying, and being first instead of second. And that comes from living and filling your day with the highest priority actions that inspire you, so your day doesn't fill up with low priority distractions that don't. I learned a long time ago what my highest priorities were. It was research, write, travel, teach. That's it. So I teach every day, I research every day, I write every day, and most of the time I travel, but now with COVID, I travel online. I'm in countries, when I get off here this afternoon, I'm in Australia. Last night I finished up in Australia. And then I go to Tokyo. I'm in all over the world. So I just do it by Zoom. I'm not traveling, I'm traveling by Zoom, but I research, write, travel, teach. That's it. Everything else in my life is delegated. I don't cook, I don't drive, I don't do administrative, I don't manage anything, because what I've done is I've surrounded myself with people who are inspired to do the things that I want to delegate. So I'm not burdened by distracting low priority things that lower my value of myself. Anytime you do lower value things, you devalue yourself. And anytime you do something that's truly high, you're inspired, your self-worth goes up. And when your self-worth goes up, the world honors you, just like you honor you.
How do you increase your value or your self-value? What do you do Is it, do you value it on an hourly basis, on a yearly basis? You know, is it how much money you make? Is it like, how do you do that? How do you shift from, you know, being stuck in day to day to focusing on,
Just
okay,
you do it incrementally. It didn't happen overnight. It's an incremental thing. You sit down and write down everything you do in a day and be honest with yourself. And you will immediately see that you're doing low priority crap all the time. Not really the most important thing that produces the most and serves the most and is the most meaning. So first get in touch with what that is. Go and first do your value determination process. I have one complimentary on my website, as you know. Go and do the value determination on drdemartini.com value, how to determine your values on there. Take 30 minutes of your time and do that. It's complimentary, it's free, it's private. Go do that first and do it again a week from now and a month from now and a quarter from now and get really truthful. Because if you don't get truthful, it's just a lie to yourself. You have to know what's really, truly meaningful to you, where you're really spontaneously or inspired to do something, because that's where you're going to excel. Once you do that, you want to structure your life in the fashion where you can do that in a way that it serves. There's a niche out there that you can meet. Find that niche and focus on that, become the greatest at what you do at that. And then hire people to do all the rest of the lower priority things. But list everything you do in a day, write down how much it produces per hour, prioritize that list, then make another list of how much meaning it has, each of those actions, prioritize that list, then write down how much would it cost to delegate that, and then look at the biggest spreads and prioritize that list, then look at how much time you actually spend on it, and then make a final prioritization of all the priorities. And then you'll now know what you need to focus on and what is time to delegate. And slowly but surely hire somebody to do the lower priority things and hire somebody else to do the next lower priority things until you're liberated from the self-depreciating actions that don't inspire you, weigh you down, which occupy space and time in your mind and make you vulnerable to distractions. And then you're left with what you love doing that you spontaneously can't wait to do. Because when you can't wait to go and deliver and be of service to people, people can't wait to get that service.
yeah, I mean, all morning, I woke up like 3 hours early to do this. Because obviously that's a very inspired action.
When you're inspired, you don't notice time. You know, I'm getting ready to teach a 14-hour program. It starts at 3 p.m., pardon me, and it'll go to 5 a.m. I'm about to teach you in Australia for 7 days. Wow. And we do a full-on program for 14 hours a day. And then I finish that, we start a 5-day one in Tokyo. Time is irrelevant to somebody who's inspired by what they do. They don't think about time. Because you when you're doing what you really love to do, you don't notice time. And people get engaged and they don't notice time. If you're having to focus on, I need a break, I need some stimulant, I need a vacation, I need a weekend, you're not doing what you love. You don't think about that. That's the least of your focus.
Yeah.
You focus on being engaged on something that's deeply meaningful and time is absorbed and you're present. So if it's essential that you prioritize your life if you want to start building momentum in the direction of liberating yourself from low price stuff. Now, what happens is we subordinate to people we compare ourselves to. We go through a mall, we see somebody we think's more intelligent, we see somebody who thinks more successful, we see somebody who thinks more wealthy, more stable relationship, more socially savvy, more physically fit, more spiritually aware. The moment we compare ourselves to others, instead of compare our own daily actions to our own highest values, we've automatically succumbed to mediocrity. We're not here to judge and put people on pedestals or even put them in pits. We're here to put them in a heart. We're here to serve equitably. And we're here to prioritize our life according to what's true in a way that is meaningful to yourself and serving of others. When you do, you got the game. You're in the moment. And people that do that, they live with meaning and they fulfill something and they do something philanthropic. The people that make money without meaning end up in debauchery. And they're usually looking for a quick fix. And they're in the amygdala and they're hedonistic. And I have no interest in perpetuating that because it's non-sustainable. But what is sustainable is having sustainable fair exchange with people and caring enough about people to find out their needs. And that's about asking questions, not presuming and assuming and projecting what you think people need finding out what's truly what they're willing, because then you got a demand. People will buy it. People always want to buy what they're looking for. Just got to find out what it is and care enough to find out what you love to deliver and what they love to get. Put that together, you got a winning team.
You know, one of the things that I learned from you was this, that when you commit to mastery, all the distractions go away. So I have entrepreneurs that follow me, and one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs, sometimes even with myself, is that we have this thing called the shiny object syndrome, right? You know, the mask business, we should get into the mask business, or we should go do this, or there's this big opportunity, and just naturally, I don't know if it's natural, but it seems very natural to go and explore more opportunities. What advice do you have to stay focused versus, you know, getting distracted by shiny objects?
Immediate gratification cost, long-term vision pays. It's like Buffett said, timing the market is less powerful than time in the market. And so people, you know, when they're not, if you're not fulfilled by something deeply meaningful, you're vulnerable to immediate gratification. Compulsive, impulsive, immediate gratifying, addictive behaviors are a compensation for unfulfilled highest values. Go focus on what's really meaningful to you. Then you will see opportunities occasionally that you take advantage of. But they'll be aligned and congruent with what you're up to, and they'll match. Our greatest innovation and creativity and genius occurs when we're pursuing challenges that actually inspire us. We don't run from challenge then, we pursue them.
Doctor, one of the things that you mentioned in your 3-day program, you said, you know, when you're attracted to something or someone, you spend more time with them. And if you're not, if you're not attracted, then you want to stay least away from it. Can you expand on that?
Well, you naturally called intrinsically to that which is most meaningful. But you can get distracted by illusions, things you're conscious of the upsides to and unconscious of the downsides to, which is an infatuation, which is like a prey versus a predator. Or you could be, in a sense, subjected from and avoiding something you perceive more, you're conscious of the downsides, unconscious of the upsides. So anytime you have a lack of full consciousness and you're judging something with a polarized view, it's going to distract you. Anything that you infatuate with, anything you resent is going to occupy space and time in your mind and distract you from being present. So mastery is listening to your intuition, which is constantly trying to neutralize these distractions. Our impulses and instincts of our animal nature can make us sway, avoid, and seek. But our intuition is constantly trying to, our sixth sense, if you will, is attempting to see both sides of things and extract meaning out of it. So if you're infatuated, the intuition is trying to point out the downside. If you're resentful, it's trying to point out the upsides. It's trying to neutralize that which is polarized, to liberate yourself from that which occupies space and time in your mind, so you can be present and focused on what's meaningful. The mean. Meaningful is what is the mean, according to Aristotle and the Stoics. The mean, not the polarities, the mean. Just like the market has ups and downs. And when it's up, you think, oh, that's good. You're blind to the downside because you're buying overpriced stock. When it's down, oh, that's bad. No, it's not. You're buying cheap stock. You keep buying. The mean is what the average is. So anytime you can know what the average is and set realistic expectations and pursue that, what the market on the external world does means nothing. You just keep buying and you'll get an average and you'll know what to predict and you'll have probability in your favor instead of emotions throwing you off. And the same thing in life. If you allow the external world to run you, you're not clear on the inside of what you're committed to. Get clear on what's priority, and the distractions are automatically easy to walk away from. If you fill your day with a very, very high priority actions, it's easy to say no to distractions. But if you got nothing on your plate, the outside world is going to run your life.
I love it. Doctor, you know, one of the things you talked about was finding the best investment resource to, and it was, I think it was LSE, London School of Economics. Was it London School of Economics that you said they have the best investment research?
Well, there's from the London School of Business and Economics there is a report, a Credit Suisse report that comes out annually for 121 years now. And it's a summary of all the markets worldwide, just about everything you can buy, whether it's real estate or small cap stocks, mid cap stocks, large cap stocks, bonds, money certificates, CDs, whatever is in the market that you can buy, real estate cycles, everything. It's monitored them for 100, 121 years. And it's reliable. It's done by some professors. They've got adequate information and you can rely on it. And it's shown very clearly that the small cap stock indices that have the lowest turnover rates and the lowest cost have produced the most. And so people can go out there and try to beat that with gimmicks, but in the long run, the cheapest, the simplest, the least distracting, long-term is continue to buy and hold on to quality stocks that are serving great numbers of people and wait the course. But people want to quickly, they want to get rich quick. And I find that that's usually what makes them have volatilities, trying to chase that next big gold mine, if you will. What's interesting is since I've been doing that, my wealth has grown significantly without any real effort. And I've attracted, on occasion, incredible opportunities periodically, including a gold mine. I've been blessed to have part ownership of a gold mine. Not because I bought it, it was given as a gift. I'm just saying because I have been patient and consistently buying weekly into markets, not trying to time the market excessively, just keep buying markets on quality companies that serve ever greater numbers of people. And not try to guess, not try to gamble, just keep buying quality investments. Along the way, as my wealth has accumulated, opportunities that are legitimate opportunities come across. You come across them. You can also take advantage of obvious crashes. Crashes are great times if you have the cash to take advantage of them. So every 7 to 10, 11 years, there's big crashes and you take advantage of them if you have cash reserves. I always recommend people have a cash reserve. And also there's opportunities that you didn't anticipate that you can't even find, they come to you. And the more wealth you accumulate, the more opportunities keep coming. That's my observation. So just patience. One of the greatest gifts, as Einstein said, is compound interest. And people don't realize it. You know, if you work for others, you're going to probably pay the most taxes in your life. If you work for yourself, you're going to probably have some reduction in taxes, legitimate. But once you invest, at least in America, you have long-term capital gains. And if you would reinvest the dividends and there's no taxation until you take it out, it's only 20% taxation. So to reduce your taxes and make sure you get the most return, it's buying in quality companies over long periods of time that keep serving. And so I've been doing that for 38 years, going on 39 years. Wow. And it's been very, very, very rewarding. That's all I can say. And so I tell people, you know, people are always trying to get that next big magic bullet, trying to get that big kill. Anyway, one of the problems with getting rich quick is you won't appreciate getting rich slow. So I recommend methodical investing consistently. More people that I've seen that have stabilized and built wealth has been the ones that are steady and their mind is not unstable. They're very stable, they're very focused, they're committed, and they truly have a value in wealth. Money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. And many people fantasize that they want money, but they really don't. What they want is the lifestyle that it provides. And they confuse that with wealth building. Wealth is not about buying things. Wealth is about having your assets work for you that buy things and not eroding the capital gains and the capital growth. So people who say they want to be wealthy, and I've spoken to millions that say that, but 1% make it to financial independence. And the reason being is because only 1% really have a value on buying assets. So until you know the difference between an asset and a consumable, depreciable liability, you're not going to get wealthy. You're going to just keep buying things and keep always struggling every month and be a slave to money all your life. So it's your hierarchy of values that dictate your financial destiny. And if you don't have a shift in values, know what they are first, and then have a shift in values, you're probably going to continue to do the same thing, expecting different results and frustrating yourself.
What's the most effective way to shift your values? So, for example, if my values are mainly around making money and wealth and just like, let's just say I've been obsessed with making money since I was a kid. And then I realized, okay, you know what? I didn't really pay much attention to relationships or to my health. How do you shift or how do you add that extra value in?
Well, every decision you make moment by moment is based on what you believe in that moment will give you the greatest advantage or disadvantage to your hierarchy of values. So unless you have a high value on wealth building, it's not going to happen. You know, I've interviewed people, thousands. I mean, we've got on our value determination process, we have people have sometimes sent in their value determination. We've got thousands of them. And there's a definite correlation between wealthy people and their values and poor people with their values financially. Now, everybody has wealth, but they have wealth in the form of what they value most. So if your highest value is your children, that's where your wealth is, those lovely children. If your value is social contribution, then your wealth is all the people you've made a difference in. If your wealth is your physical fitness and you got a beautiful body or fit body, that's your wealth. But financial wealth requires that you have a value on wealth building and studying it. And the way you know you really value it is you're studying it, you're showing progress month by month as an accumulation of finance. When people say, I really want to be wealthy and there's no evidence of it, I go, no, what your life demonstrates is what I go by, not what your words are. Your words mean nothing. Your life demonstrates it. And there are people that work hard and make a lot of money, but they don't keep it. So they don't have wealth building, they have money making. And there's a difference. So the way you know you have wealth on your values is wealth is growing and nothing's interfering with it. You're not letting anything on the outside extract you from building it. And it's growing. That's how I knew I had wealth building, but I didn't start out that way until 27 years old. I was good at making money and then spending it on something, getting a car, going on a trip, buying clothes, I was always just making money, saving money for those things. It turned to 27 going on 28 when all of a sudden a guy came in my office and asked me 10 questions about financial independence. And I realized it's time for me to get real. And then I started to save and invest money. And now my wealth started to accumulate. And I'm amazed, and I mean truly amazed at what compound interest does over time. Just amazing. It now makes more money than working. The purpose of financial independence is not the fancy lifestyle. A lot of foolish celebrities make millions and blow it on fancy lifestyles and then bankrupt. There's 37 bankrupt known people that you've heard about right now going bankrupt because they don't know how to manage money. And they've made hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you make, it's how you manage what you make and whether it's working for you passively or whether you're working for it actively. So I shifted it with 10 questions, which I'll be glad to share, but 10 questions shifted my whole financial focus. And that's when I started to save and invest money. And that's
Can you share those questions?
Pardon me?
Can you share those questions?
Yeah. So I'm 27 years old. A guy comes in my office who's a financial planner. And he was a young guy, young buck, that had worked for the gentleman that helped my dad. My dad wasn't super wealthy. He was a middle income kind of guy, but it helped him because he had a little helper, financial planner helper. But this young guy came by to meet me and he asked me some questions. And he asked me, what exactly is my current assets, total asset? And I had to kind of think, and I really didn't know. I was naive and I kind of estimated. He says, whoever has the most certainty about their finance gets more money. And somebody that doesn't have certainty about where they are, money stays away. So you need to know, sir. And so I sat down and I said, okay, when he left that office, I sat down and got really clear. I took every asset that I had. I had rare collectible books. I had all kinds of stuff. And I got as close to a real conservative number of what I was sitting at. And it was negative because I had student loans and loans from my office and house payment and car payments. And I had a lot of debt. And the second question he asked me, what is your current liabilities? And that I rattled off pretty good. I knew what those were. And I was clear about those. And those were a little bit more than those assets, particularly since I had bought a house at a peak, not at the trough, at a foolishness, impulse. So then I got that. The third question was, what's the total net worth? What's your assets minus liabilities? And I then figured that out to the best of my ability from those two answers. It wasn't certain, but I'd made a commitment that at that moment I was going to figure it out and get it certain. And after I got those, the fourth one was, how much passive income do you want to live on annually that you're going to call financially independent? Now this is in 1982. I was 27 years old. At that time, $100,000 seemed like a pretty good deal. So I said, I want a minimum of $100,000 a year, passively, not having to work. And $1 million still seemed like something of some significance. Today, $1 million doesn't mean much, but then it still had some significance. So I said $100,000 passive income, 6-digit figure at least. He goes, okay, write that down. Now, how much average interest do you believe you can earn in your investment knowledge per year? With all your knowledge of investing, what do you know conservatively that you can guarantee you can average per year, long term? I go, I don't even know. I'm not even an investor really. And we calculated it. We came up with 8% back in 1982. We figured that we could long term generate 8%. Then he said, well, how much is the inflation rate? I had no idea. And it had been high and low, but we ended up putting 3%. But it had been higher than that, and it had been low. It had been double digits, and now it's been low for the last 25 years, 30 years. Then as a result of that, he then said, how much money, total net worth, do you need earning 8% minus the 3% to give you $100,000 a year? And I go, I don't know how to calculate that. Well, come on, let's get your calculation out. And I went, okay, 8% minus 3% is 5%. 5% into 100% is 20. 20 times 100,000 would be 2 million. So I need 2 million earning 8% minus 3% to give me 5% to give me $100,000. We calculated it out, and I said, I need $2 million today. I had debt. I didn't have $2 million. I had debt. So I needed $2 million earning me 8% to do that. And then he said, now what's the shortfall between your current net worth, which is negative, and that? And I said, well, now I need 2.1 million. He said, okay, so now we got that. Now the next question, number 9, is what is your strategy to get that $2.1 million in the next 24 hours? And I said, I went blank. My jaw was in a knot. My stomach was in a knot. I think my butt was knotted. I didn't know what to do. And I thought to myself, maybe this is not something as real. Because when you start asking these questions, these are real questions. I was living in a fantasy about what I was going to do and thinking it was miraculously going to come about instead of actually realizing I got to work to get this. This is going to take some work. And I couldn't come up with a strategy. And I sat with a headache and thought, okay, I could make 1,550,000 in 2 days. I can make 525,000 in 4 days. I make 255,000 or whatever in 8 days. I can make 126,000 in 16 days. And I thought of every possible thing I could think of in order to get me that outcome. And no matter what I did, it wasn't going to, none of those seemed possible. So I stretched it out to 15 years. But I had to factor inflation in. So I needed 2 times 2 million. I needed $4 million at the end of 15 years. And then I divided that into 180 months. And that came out $22,000 a month I had to average to get that goal. And that was overwhelming because I was only saving $200 a month at the time. And I thought, man, I couldn't see any light. And then something popped in my head that I wasn't expecting. And I call it the forced accelerated savings technique and forced accelerated investment technique today. But I thought I could start out now, and I have strong confidence that I could increase it little by little as I go. So I thought, okay, if I do $200 a month now, and in 3 months, once I get comfortable with that, and I think I can do that, I'm steady with that, I can make it 300. Then I made it 500. Then I made it 750. Then it made it 1,000. Then it made it 1,100 and 1,210. And I decided I was going to increase my savings every 3 months, 10%. And I went over to a discount broker, Schwab, and I signed a document saying that I want you to take out of my business account an increasing of 10% every quarter from now on until I say stop. And as long as I signed it, they would do it. And so I was now doubling what I was saving every 2 years. But by then, some of my debts were cleared, and I added that amount that I was paying off debts into it. So within a short period of time, it was $2,000 a month, and then it was $4,000 a month, and it was $8,000 a month, and $16,000. 9 years later, 9 years, I was financially independent. So I was 37 years old when I turned financially independent. At the beginning of 37. And from there on out, instead of raising my lifestyle, I never raised my lifestyle unless I raised my savings and taxes equal amounts. And I just kept increasing it until it was $250,000 in a month into savings. And I didn't know how I would ever start that when I started or get there. But all of a sudden, business came in, royalties came in, movie opportunities. The more I valued me, the more I invested in me, the more everybody else started doing it. And it was a reflection. And all I can say is incremental building of momentum is powerful. And I've never touched that money. I don't spend that money. I let it compound and grow. And I make sure I make money for my lifestyle separately. And I can tell you right now that that's now making me more money than I am working, which is great. I can't complain. But it's because I was patient. And I kept methodically increasing it quarterly without question. And I did not know where the money was going to come every quarter, but it always came. When you manage money wisely, you get more money to manage. And money circulates to the economy from those who don't know how to manage it to those who know how to manage it. And today I've been blessed because of that. And it's compounded.
Thank you so much for that. Do you have like a percentage that you put away each and every single month?
Well, it started out at less than 1%. But by increasing it 10%, it got up to 53% of my gross business income. Gross business income. It made my business more efficient. It structured things differently. So all I can say is that I learned from a very wealthy gentleman that lived in New York and also in Palm Beach, who had the Herbert Runick, they called him. And what Herbert did is he saved 50%. Him and his wife saved 50% of all their income. That's just their policy. And I worked to do that. And I found interviewing wealthy people that they take a portion of it and they invest 50%. So I basically made that my goal. 50% of whatever I made, gross income goes to that. And then I figure out how to run my business on the rest. And surprisingly, the more money I made, every time I increased my savings, my business went up. And then it covered the cost. It's almost like I noticed that no matter what I saved, then I would break even. And I saved more, then I'd break even. But I was getting the profits coming off the top. I always paid myself first. And I try to get all my staff and everybody else and that I know to try to do the same. And the ones that do it, they're very grateful. My daughter's now doing it. She's seeing the exact same results. I have thousands of students around the world that just followed that to the letter. And they just go, I can't believe I didn't know this from day one. And people don't realize how simple it really is.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's valuable to me as well. Doctor, I want to respect your time. So I want to say, if people want to go and find you, what's the best way? I'm going to put the links down below this video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share this with your friends and family. This is one of those videos that you got to listen to over and over again. That's certainly what I'm going to be doing. But doctor, do you have any special resources that we can give to people? I know I'm going to include the value determination checklist. Anything else?
Well, if they want to know something about where I'm at, what I'm doing, my podcast, my show, just go to drdemartini.com. And if they go there, they'll have enough information. If you go to the media, there are thousands. I've written for 1,400 magazines and newspapers around the world. So there's thousands of radio, television, newspaper, podcasts, webinar, interviews that they can start learning from. And there's YouTube channels that we have and podcasts. So I would just say take advantage of those things and educate yourself. They're complementary education. And I have a lot online seminars every week, and take advantage of the information. I'm committed to sharing as much information as possible to help people do extraordinary outcomes with their life. So
I appreciate it very much. Dr. Just give us a thumbs up for the thumbnail. There you go. Awesome.